All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Robbie Basel Show. I'm your host, Robbie Basel, as always, and today you'll see something a little bit different here. One, we have a recorded episode, which is good. Secondly, you will see that you might see a little watermark in the corner, probably on this side or this side. I don't know. I've never used this service before. It's called Riverside, so it's the first time I'm using it. And from what I've heard, there's a little watermark. It's not as big as the old one. When I used Filmora Wondershare, that was a disaster. But you know, this you'll see this for about a month until September, and then in September, along with the huge videos that I'm going to be releasing with guests and all this other stuff, edited videos for you guys, you will see no watermark or anything like that anywhere. We're also ditching streaming for the majority of the time now, so in the short term, I'm going to use not Filmora Wondershare, Riverside. I'm using this service for the month, and then we'll go back to the way I used to do it back in May when you didn't see the watermark or anything like that. But enough about what the future is going to be like. We have the present, and something happened on Tuesday. A deadline occurred. The MLB Trade Deadline. Let's dive right in. So, how I'm going to do this, I'm going to talk about the Mets and the Yankees, and then I'll go into 3 winners and my 3 losers of the trade deadline. Let's stop wasting your time. Let's dive right in. So, the Mets. Interesting deadline for them. In the beginning of the year, you could not have told me with a straight face that the Mets would sell at the deadline. Could not do it. Absolutely couldn't. What did they do? They sold at the deadline. So the Mets traded Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Tommy Pham, Mark Canha, Dominic Leone. They shipped off anything they could, essentially. And they got a lot of good prospects out of this. I'll give them that. They really did. And I talked about it a couple of times now. I feel like I've talked about it a couple of times now, but the Mets did something that some fans wouldn't want them to do, but they did it right. They traded for Ronald Acuna's brother. They traded for let's look at the Mets prospects they traded for. By the way, just one quick note: I was on 3 other podcasts this week. I think it's the J&J show with Jacob and JJ. I was on Sports Come First with Kyle, and the new show, Matt Squared, the Matt Squared podcast, it was on this afternoon. They're on Spotify. So make sure you check all those guys out. I'll try to leave some of the links in the description. I don't know if I'm going to remember because of the crunch time that I'm on for this video. But, I was on a lot of those guys' podcasts. Make sure you go search them up and check them out. It was a lot of fun going with other guests and just learning a whole different perspectives and all that fun stuff. Back to the Mets. The big prospects, I'll talk about a couple of them. We'll start with Luis Angel Acuna, acquired in the Max Scherzer trade. He's been raking in Double-A with a over 800 OPS with a 312 batting average. He rakes, plays middle infield, plays center field. I like that he can play at both spots. And one evaluator said Acuna is very likable. A year from now, he can be the real guy. He's not one yet. He's a good one. But it's not like a wow factor kind of guy yet. And I agree with this statement. If he was a wow factor, he'd be in AAA already. But you have to understand that he's still young. And that's what I like about Acuna. Young with a ton of potential. And some say that he was even better than Ronald Acuna Jr. at some point, his brother. So, I like players better than Ronald Acuna. I think Mets fans would like players better than Ronald Acuna. Why? Because we play Ronald Acuna like 12 or 16 times a year. I don't know how many times we play Ronald Acuna. But, to continue with this, the other prospect I want to talk about is Drew Gilbert. Drew Gilbert, acquired in the Justin Verlander trade. Let's just dive right into him. Number 1 prospect from the Astros. He is an outfielder in high A and Double A this year, hitting .274 with a 458 slugging, 363 on base, OPS around 820, with 12 home runs, 38 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, 19 doubles. He is a very big contact hitter. And that's not a lot what the Mets have. They have a couple pieces, but they're very inconsistent. So what I like about Gilbert is he's something that the Mets don't have. He's a young first-round pick. His first-round pick in 2022 for the Astros. He's just started back up with, I believe he's on the high A Mets right now. I don't know who he's on. My thing just lagged. So, but, Drew Gilbert I think, is different than a lot of the prospects the Mets have had before. But the synopsis on him is Gilbert has been tabbed as a center fielder of the future for the Astros. It'll be interesting to see if he's that for the Mets. More than any trade, Gilbert fills an organizational need. The Mets have no top outfield prospects in the upper levels of their farm system. That's a very good point. How so? The Mets have tried, I hate this, have tried to move infielders to the outfield. They've tried that with Ronnie Mauricio. They've tried that with, Mark Vientos, I believe, is an outfielder, but that's another one you'd argue with that for. Brett Beatty, I think, may have even touched the outfield at some point. But I like the idea of what Gilbert can be. And that's a lot of people like, is what Gilbert can be. And is there anyone else I want to talk about from this list? I'm just trying to scroll through these trades because there's a lot of prospects here. I think that's all we're going to talk about. The two prospects, Gilbert. We'll talk about Ryan Clifford because he's the last prospect here. He's acquired in the Verlander trade. You know what? He's one of those guys where no one knows his true skill set yet, according to this scout. He's a guy with that kind of power. He's a good hitter. High IQ guy, which the Mets at times like they have an IQ of 0. Clifford can now very well be the most advanced and promising hitter in the Mets farm system, according to this synopsis. He showed us a glimpse of what he could be by homering in his first at-bat as a member of the Mets organization. You love to hear it. You love the hope that the Mets have for the future. But what do we know? They're not meme. They're the lol Mets, as some will say. They will reign eternal until the Mets finally can make it out of the dreaded first round of the playoffs. How long will that be until that happens? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But there was someone else that had the opposite idea of what to do at the trade deadline. That was the Yankees and Brian Cashman. So what did the Yankees do at the deadline? The Mets had a fire sale. They were doing bad. What did the Yankees do? Pretty much nothing. And it makes you wonder, what the heck is Brian Cashman on at times? Like, is he okay? Is he asleep? Did no one tell him the deadline was Tuesday? I don't know. But there's a lot of questions that can happen in that regard. And the Yankees made 2 trades on Tuesday, acquiring reliever Kenyon Middleton and starter Spencer Howard. Spencer Howard, a former first-round pick of the Phillies. He's actually been pretty bad this year. He's like a 7 ERA or an 11. I don't know. I've heard both things. And then you have Kenyon Middleton, who's been inconsistent for the White Sox, but I think the White Sox fire sale was unfortunate but needed. And the Yankees acquired an okay middle reliever in case everyone gets injured to hell and back. So, the incompetence, I don't even think you can word it as that anymore. Because every year, the Yankees and the fan base go into the season thinking they're the best team with the best prospects and will win the American League. Go to a World Series for the first time, and who knows, I don't even know how many years it is at this point. Reality slapped them in the face. How so? They're in last in the American League East. Granted, it's a half game, and it's Boston, but you're behind the Red Sox, a team that was projected to lose like 80-something games with the squad you're throwing out on the field. How do people have jobs still? If this was any other organization, everyone would be fired and kicked to the curb. Just understand that. Like, say this was the Mets, and you had Brian Cashman. Honestly, I think Brian Cashman would have been horrible in the Mets. I ain't throwing that idea out there. But if this happened to any other organization and you're underachieving this much, and for how long Brian Cashman has been there, he wouldn't have needed to pack his bags and go to China to learn Chinese, as someone like to say it. Because he would have been kicked out of a job by anyone not named the Yankees years ago. So, with that in mind, the Yankees trades, I like Spencer Howard. They haven't, no one's really given Spencer Howard a legitimate chance to develop. And that's why I think Spencer Howard is not the worst piece that the Yankees could have traded for. Kenyon Middleton, I think I actually got injured recently, so that'll be a fun way to see what the Yankees do on that matter. But it's really under expectation to see that the Yankees didn't go after a guy like, I don't know, Aaron Savali. They didn't go after Eduardo Rodriguez, Michael Lorenzen. They didn't do anything like that. No. They got Spencer Howard. And they think that they're going to be the World Series champions, damn it. And they're not. They're not. How? How so, you ask? Robbie, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. Yeah, I realize that the Yankees they may need something more than a bandage to fix the glaring holes on their roster. The gashing wounds on their team. Because there's other teams in that division that made trades. And let's start. And that leads us into the winners of the deadline. My first winner is the Tampa Bay Rays. And you're asking, Robbie, how the hell did they win the deadline? They made one trade. That trade was better than anything the Yankees to have done the whole deadline. That's more notable than anything the Yankees really did all season other than the Herman perfect game. Or no-hitter. Whatever it was. By the way, hope Herman gets through the recovery. He went to a drug or alcohol abuse program. Hope he's good. Just a quick note on that. People are wondering how the heck did this happen. I'm just happy that he reported it now and not in 10 years when and he can go through much worse stuff. But enough on the depression. Let's start with the Rays. Let's think about this real quick. When you look at the Rays rotation, what names jump out to you immediately? Let's name their starting five. Shane McClanahan, Cy Young winner. Tyler Glasnow, the man who was the big piece after the Rays fleeced the Pirates for Chris Archer. Drew Rasmussen, who emerged on the scene last year. Jeffrey Springs, another solid starter. And a young gun in Shane Baz, who I believe also was in the trade with the Pirates. I don't know. I actually might have been in the trade with the Pirates. I don't know. How many of those guys are still healthy? One, maybe? How so? Springs and Rasmussen are out for the year. McClanahan got hurt. Glasnow's injury prone. And Baz is inconsistent. They also have Zach Eflin, just to throw out another name out there. He's been okay. But when you look at this team as a whole, they needed to do something. And they executed by acquiring Aaron Savali for not that as much as I thought he would be needed to be traded for. Aaron Savali, a lot of club control, a guy a team like the Rays would absolutely need in order to contend. I think that's pretty good work by Tampa Bay. Was it the only notable trade that they did? I believe it was. But, the Rays, they're in the spot that they're in for a reason. He's been red hot in July. You just gotta hope they keeps it up for the rest of the year. And they've made some minor moves, and then and they added, of course, the one veteran. So they've also added a Kyle Manzardo just to add the other possible notable trade that they did. So that's one trade done. Your second winner, and I don't want to say they're a winner because this starter got lit up in the first inning recently. The Texas Rangers have to be a winner on your list. What did Texas do? They acquired more pitching. You have DeGrom and you have Nathan Eovaldi to start the year. DeGrom goes down. You go out and get another former New York Met now. Now you can consider him a former New York Met, and Max Scherzer, who did get lit up recently in the first inning of his first start with the Rangers. They acquired Jordan Montgomery. They got Chris Stratton. I believe, have they made any other moves? No. And I agree that the Rangers won a little bit at the deadline. Could they have done more? Maybe. The question will be health-wise for them. I'm not the biggest fan of their bullpen, but they've been all right. I like their hitting core. I really do. Semien and Seager are living up to their contracts. Adolis Garcia is still him. Josh Jung has been great at third. So they've done things. If you're a Rangers fan, you should be pretty happy with yourselves. I mean, the Rangers did what they needed to do and acquire more pieces at the deadline. I think it's solid work for them. But you just have to think about this next year. Imagine to yourself, you are a Rangers fan, preparing for next season. And what's your 1-2 punch in the rotation? What the Mets could have had. Or what they had last year. With Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom. Which adding another former New York player, both the Yankees and Jordan Montgomery. Nathan Eovaldi. This team is gross. When healthy. Keyword, will they stay healthy? No idea. Your next winner. Your last winner. Because we've talked about the Rays. So you talked about the Rangers. How about a winner in the National League? There weren't many of them. I do find one that jumps to mind immediately. If I gotta find them first. And, some say the Diamondbacks for a win, but I actually don't like what the Diamondbacks did. So that was my National League team I could have considered, but no, I'm sticking in the American League again, and I'm sticking in the American League West. My team for this will be the Astros. Why do I like what the Astros have done? Because they've actually addressed their needs and got Verlander back, which is good for the Mets, because I didn't like that contract to begin with. The Astros, we can pull them up. They got Kendall Graveman and then Justin Verlander. So Dana Brown in the first deadline for the Astros, pretty good work from them, from the front office of the Astros. His first deadline. How has this improved them enough to really go after first place? They addressed some bullpen woes. They addressed starting pitching. I don't know. It's a big what? It's a big I don't know answer. Because I don't know if trading your first and fifth best prospects for Justin Verlander is the right idea. But, all things considered, they did it right. They did what they needed to do. Some say they did it right. Some say they did it wrong by trading their high prospects. But to me, I think they did it right. Go out and get your experienced starter who was at injury woes before, which will fit more in the playoffs because starters don't go as long in the playoffs usually. And you get your reliever that you had last year. They're basically rebuilding themselves from what they had last year. I think it's decent work from the Astros. Your losers. Who took the L at the trade deadline? Who took the L not named the Yankees? We're going to start with their who do I want to start with? There's a lot of options I can start with. I already know I have a couple of L's. But the team I'm going to start with, choices. I'm going to start off with the Giants. What the hell were they thinking? The Giants, in second in the National League West, with holes on their roster and young players to go out and grab. They went out and got A.J. Pollock. This is one of those moments where if I was on another show, I would have put the mic down and walked away. Because that pisses me off. You think you're competitive enough to only need A.J. Pollock? Did their GM collude with the Yankees on what to do during the trade deadline? Did they, form some secret alliance? What the hell were they thinking? You're doing well because the Diamondbacks are falling back to what they should be. Kinda. Why the heck do you still think you're competitive? There's 61 wins. Yeah, it's a fraudulent 61 wins. They have Logan Webb. But you really cannot name multiple people on this roster. Let's go look at it. Dive right in. Players. Still got Brandon Crawford, Jock Peterson, who's pretty good. Camilo Duvall's a great reliever. J.D. Davis, I guess. Taylor Rogers has been all right. They were like Ross Stripling. What is his team? How the heck is his team in second? I have more questions than answers on that one. Giants disappointed me. The second team that disappointed me is another National League team. That is the Reds. Let me just start off with this fact again. I think people who have watched the podcast that I've been on this week know this. No one's that good in the NL Central. Or the AL Central, in fact. You can maybe argue the Brewers, but that's about it. So to prove your legitimacy, you went out and did absolutely nothing. Who did they add? Let's go check who they added. They traded for Sam Mold from the Athletics. Two claps for that. Because that's terrible. I want to give them a standing ovation if they actually went out and made moves. That's outrageous. Outrageous that the Reds really think at some point that they can make the playoffs with this team. But there's another perspective here you have to consider from this. Some fans may want to go out and exile their GM and David Bell, who already should be exiled. Some also will say, and this is a fair argument as well, that the Reds are not prepared enough because they're too young of a team. And as much as I want the Reds to trade for more pieces and go all in this year and win the Central and make the playoffs, there's no really right or wrong answer to if the Reds should have gone in and made the playoffs and made moves to try to get to the playoffs. Because they are young. They would have gotten swept in the playoffs. Then you still have the team like a Cardinals who can still build themselves back up to after they traded all their pieces. You have the Cubs who can add. The Brewers are good enough to win the division already. The Pirates can maybe even build up to some sort of relevancy next year. That's your other argument. I don't know what to think on them. Other than that, they lost the deadline because they didn't do anything. If you don't do anything, it's an automatic loss. Even if you have pieces to sell. The final loser, the final bona fide loser is, and I hate to say that they're a loser because they've already lost enough this season, the Nationals. You only got that for Jeimer Candelario? You could have traded off Lane Thomas for a good haul, I think. You had other pieces that maybe could have been traded away. It's tough enough when you don't have pieces to trade. It's harder to accept the fact that you screwed up the deadline. You pieces to trade, and you didn't get enough for one of them, and two, you didn't trade in one of the others. You don't have a direction. Choose what you want to do, Nationals. You're a young team that didn't have any veteran help. You traded your veteran presence in Candelario. What are you trying to do? Stay mediocre? That's what they're doing. I don't want to get even frustrated anymore. They moved Kyle Finnegan and Lane Thomas. Come on, guys. Enough about the deadline. There's more to talk about. Two other sports to talk about. This is what I like to call the football and football portion of this stream. Or the episode. We ain't streaming today. And we had our first NFL game of the season last night. And I went back and watched the whole thing. The highlights of the whole thing. And I'll give my notes. It was the Jets and the Browns. I feel like I'm one of the perfect people to do this. That's like the small content creator type of things to do this. So let's begin. The first big talking point was Zach Wilson. I want to give Zach Wilson the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to anyway. Because he had a deep ball that last year he would have underthrown by like 5 yards or would have overthrown it by 20. He was still inconsistent. He did slip on a play and maybe it was just nerves his first day back. First gameplay back. But Zach Wilson didn't look that terrible. Did he look improved? A little bit? But, like, I don't know. Maybe he can do more while holding a clipboard next season. He led the team to 2 field goals. He played the first quarter. They continue with the Jets. They went to Tim Boyle, and he looked all right. Granted, he was playing against the worst players I've ever seen from the Browns. He went 6 of 11 for 61 yards. The Jets had, I believe, under 200 yards of offense, proving that Aaron Rodgers was actually kind of needed, or that the backups are really bad. Israel Abanikanda, that's actually the first time I've ever said his name right. He rushed for a touchdown. Chris Streveler came in at the end and threw a pick. He went 1 of 7 for 9 yards, proving that he is indeed worse than Zach Wilson. Stop with the freaking narrative that Chris Streveler is better than Zach Wilson. He's not. Zach Wilson's the second best quarterback on the team. There's no questions needed. Did I find any players notable that did anything? Will McDonald got a sack, but that's about it. We had Michael Clemens. I think he played in this game. Michael Clemens played in this game. The other thing. The Jets got a lot of penalties. Oh boy, the discipline. It was miraculous. I think they got like 9 penalties, 8 or 9 penalties in the first half, accepted or declined. I think the Browns maybe got like 3. So, yeah. Greg Zuerlein is looking like prime Greg Zuerlein again. And the Jets had actually a total of 90 return yards, which is almost as much as they had on offense. Actually, that's better than That's better than the rushing offense. It was the kick return yards. Jeez. All right, the Browns. Kellen Mond looked okay. He did throw that pick, which is pretty awful. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I'm interested to see if they even keep him. Because I don't know who the Browns' backup QBs are. I mean, they have Mond. They also have, I think, somebody else. Is Case Keenum here? I'm trying to look through this roster they have on Wikipedia, on Google when you hit, like, players. And if Kellen Mond, Josh Dobbs, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson behind Deshaun Watson, who would I keep out of those three? I would keep probably Mond and Thompson-Robinson for the youth. Josh Dobbs is all right, but wow, I said he was all right. That's concerning enough. So I think Thompson-Robinson looked decent. He had like one really bad throw at one point, but he did the minimum. We saw Demetric Felton lead the game in rushing yards. John Kelly looked okay. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, of course, he can run as well. He had more total yards than any player in this game. He was the only player with over almost 100 or at over 100 yards by one singular player. Receiving, they were led by Cedric Tillman and Austin Watkins. I've heard of Cedric Tillman, not Austin Watkins. There's a couple other no-name players. Someone considered no-name players. We did see some young rookies, the backups. Cade York missed a field goal. So, yeah, I mean, it was a weird game. Very sloppy. And the Jets looked like they were playing the Patriots from a couple months back last year when Zach Wilson had like 80 total yards of offense. The Jets did that day. But enough about that football. Let's go to the other football in soccer, because there was a couple of transfers that I want to talk about. 2 transfers I want to talk about, and a news on an ownership change that I want to discuss. The first transfer is Arsenal, because, of course, if you don't know, even though I'm wearing blue, that it looks like a Chelsea fan. I'm not. I'm an Arsenal fan. I think this is right to talk about, because this doesn't make any sense. Arsenal is looking at David Raya from Brentford as another goalkeeping option. I'm not a fan of this. $40 million for a backup goalkeeper? We don't have the money of Man City or even old United. United really didn't even have money, so that's it. We don't have the money of Chelsea. We don't have the money of City. We don't have the money to do this. Why are we doing this? He's the final year of his contract, which makes this even more stupid, because he could leave for free next year and sign with us then. We have Matt Turner, who's a starting goalkeeper on a national team. My United States men's national team. Our United States men's national team, if you're from the USA, of course. And there's other teams in on him. That's what makes this worse. I would have rather see this dude fumble on Tottenham. I'd rather see him fumble in the Bundesliga than come out and fumble on Arsenal. That's from a fan's perspective. That's from an analyst's perspective. It's from any perspective. Because this should not be a decision that Arsenal need to be making at this time. You should be worried about Gabriel Jesus and who is playing the number 9 if you are Arsenal. Because let's go for the starting 11 for what Arsenal would have done if they were playing when they play Nottingham Forest next week. Which that game, by the way, is a week from Saturday. I'm very excited. And Arsenal do play in the Community Shield game no one cares about, other than if you like the two teams with City. Let's look at the 11 that I would throw out on the field. You have Ramsdale in goal. It's a 4-3-3. Your center backs are Saliba and Gabriel, which is the same as last year. Your fullbacks are Shinchenko on the left with Jurriën Timber on the right. Your 3 midfielders are Declan Rice in the center as that holding midfielder. You have Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard. And your front 3 are Martinelli, Jesus, and Bukayo Saka. Jesus is out of the picture. He got injured. Who do you put at the number 9? I don't know what you do. Do you move Martinelli to the 9 and have like a Reece Nelson start on the wing? I don't know. Florian Balogun? That'll be a fun one. If Balogun goes out and starts for Arsenal. The American who scored, I think it's 1 goal with the U.S. national team. I think he's 1, yeah, because from the Nations League. But, you know, it's a weird situation for Arsenal. I don't like it. And the last thing you need is another goalkeeper. Turner was used in the Europa League and Cup competitions. Nottingham Forest has looked to sign him, so it'd be really funny if he goes out and signs for Forest before the season starts. I don't think that's going to happen. But it's a weird situation for Arsenal. It's also a weird situation for Barcelona. That's the other transfer we're going to talk about, is Ousmane Dembele, who some know for multiple reasons. Some people know him for his lyric in the France song about, like, who, I think the meme way to say it is who likes to go into the hospital at Ousmane Dembele. I can't even say it because it's French. But Ousmane Dembele has had a private clause activated in his contract for 50 million euros to sign with PSG from Barcelona. Why am I talking about this? Well, 1, it's a big transfer. But 2, Barca's only getting half of this. Agents' fees and all this other stuff have occurred to half, I believe it could be half of the fee. So Barcelona is losing their best starting front player in their front 3 for 25 million effectively. That's wild. That's absolutely wild. Because Ousmane Dembele is pretty solid. And let's look at this. He went out and got the negotiations. They're all done. They're probably going to sign the contract tomorrow or tonight or Sunday. Tonight, tomorrow, or Sunday. Ahead of the league opener in a couple of weeks. This is a great move for PSG. Especially the Mbappe saga. This is great for them. They did something right. And Barca messed up again. How the hell did they keep doing this? I want to know. It's like one of those people who play FIFA career mode and just mess up enough to sell your whole team and be bad. That's the only way I can compare it to how Barca's messing this up. This is unbelievable. Like, I've never seen this before. A team mess up this bad for players. Other than the Knicks. When they lost down on, like, Kevin Durant and all of them. For nothing. Or how PSG could be losing Mbappe for nothing in a year. But besides the fact, 2 weird situations. Because Dembele had a release clause of 50 million. Then he had some private clause which you had to activate by, like, informing the club and not the player and whole other ridiculousness. And then if they didn't activate the private clause, they would have had to pay 100 million for Ousmane Dembele. They got the 50 million private clause done. PSG are going to win this deal, and he's going to be their starting winger, and maybe even a number 9 for PSG. Who knows where they put him? I'd rather him on the wing, though. That's just my thoughts on it. The last thing I'm going to talk about today, because F1's not racing for 3 weeks, is there was an ownership change or a co-owner or an investment, whatever the hell you want to call it. And Tom Brady has become a co-owner of an English soccer team? I think everyone's like looking at their face when you hear this news is probably the same as mine when I read the news yesterday. Birmingham? I mean, they're in the championship. They're not winning the championship. Why are you doing this? Why can't you have done a team like Norwich and just got them back to the Prem? Or someone that just got relegated, like a Southampton. You went with Birmingham? Some say the city with the worst accent in England from those like random popular videos. Really? Part of me hates it. Part of me likes it, of course. Because it's great to see the Americans try to get into this. I mean, J.J. Watt's invested, I think, in Burnley or whatever club he was doing in. You saw Ryan Reynolds go at Wrexham. Ryan Reynolds, I'm a big fan of him going to Wrexham because it's a small club. They're in Wales. Wales usually does nothing. And the Welsh are like coming in, and they got the Vanarama National League. Now they're going to hopefully win Sprint League 2 and League 1, and eventually get into the championship in 5 years. But the thing is, this is a weird one because, one, you wouldn't expect Tom Brady to do this. He has a lot to learn in this ownership stuff. It just doesn't come to my mind right away to think Tom Brady investment into a soccer club that he has no connection with. It's unfathomable to me. It's random. It's confusing at times. I had to reread this article 3 times to understand that he actually did this. It's gonna be good in the long term, but it just mind-boggling to the naked eye that Tom Brady and soccer. Will he call it soccer or football? That's the question I want to ask. There's been more questions than answers today. And, Monday I'll talk about the games from this weekend. We have hopefully more news to talk about. But that's going to be the end of episode number 25. First of all, before I end this episode, I forgot to say this in the intro. Thank you guys for sticking with me for 25 episodes already. We're a quarter of the way to 100. That's wild to me. But what I wish you guys did more, if you want to, let me just say this. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button down below. Maybe I give a giveaway one day. Who knows? Like the video, subscribe, turn on post notifications if you want to. I can't control you. Do whatever the hell you want. Just like how some of these teams are doing transfers. But for now, I'm Robbie Basel. I'll see you guys next time. Good night, everyone. See you Monday.